Good evening and welcome to the January 25th meeting of the Livermore City Council. I now call the meeting to order. Let the roll call show that all members are present and accounted for, except for Councilmember Bob Warner, who's excused. Tonight we have a special treat. We have Troop 999, which will be doing the pledge for us tonight and doing the flag brigade. Members of the Scouts are Ben Noodleman, Eli Noodleman, Connor and Bryce Gray, Zach Stewart, Ethan Kwan, Tyler Martin, Max Thorpe, Keaton and Stuart Simone, Matthew Smith. Scoutmaster is Robert Noodleman, and Assistant Scoutmaster is Steve Stewart. So if you gentlemen will come forward and do the Pledge of Allegiance for us. Bless you.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
See, did the color guard want to get a photo op up here? Now's your chance. The Scouts want to reform back up here?
We're going to do the whole troop if that's all right.
Okay, certainly, please. Now bring the whole troop up, get a photo op with the council, prove you're actually here. Oh, I guess we're moving down.
I was told by a boss.
Okay. Susan here.
I would stand up here because I'm short.
Yeah, I can use you. All right, perfect. Everyone smile. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Great, thank you very much. Moving on to proclamations and presentations, something that's near and dear to my heart. We're proclaiming February 2016 as Science and Engineering Month. And having spent my career in the sciences and having a city that's founded with 2 national laboratories, this is something that's very near and dear to my heart. I believe we have Regina Brinker in the audience. Oh, there you are, hiding in the front. The STEM coordinator for the Livermore Joint Valley Unified School District. So if I may read, whereas during Science and Engineering Month, we recognize Livermore's exemplary science and engineering programs, increase awareness of these programs among residents, and encourage additional programs focused on science and engineering. And whereas scientists and engineers reflect the characteristics that make our city great: vision, creativity, responsibility, innovation, dedication, and hard work. And whereas the City of Livermore, Lawrence Livermore, and Sandia National Laboratories, and the local schools have partnered to promote many science and engineering programs, activities, and events in Livermore, including Science on Saturdays, Expanding Your Horizons, and Science Odyssey. And whereas the Livermore Public Library has selected science and engineering as the focus of its 2016 Livermore Reads Together program, we're going to be reading I, Robot by Isaac Asimov. And we'll be hosting programs on these topics throughout the month. And whereas Science and Engineering Month is a time to celebrate our successes and to thank Livermore's science and engineering education community for their contributions and commitment to our youth, our community, and our economy. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Livermore proclaims February 2016 as Science and Engineering Month in Livermore and encourages residents to learn more about and participate in the science and engineering programs available in our community. And of course, you're seeing wearing my Livermorium pin, which was created by teams from Livermore National Labs and the Flarov Institute in Russia. So, and they just recognized 3 more. So, some amazing times. So, I'll bring this to you.
Thank you. Mayor Marchand, council members and staff, thank you for your continued support for science education and opportunities for students in the community. We all benefit from the partnership. Thank you so much. Thank you.
The fun stuff. Okay, moving on. This is Citizens Forum, item number 3. This is these are items where we invite the public to speak on items that are not on the agenda. The City Council can neither deliberate nor take action on anything that's brought up during the Citizens Forum, and we ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. So with that, the first speaker is David McGagan, Don Meeker, and Bruno Felice.
David McGuigan, Ontario Drive.
That was close.
I just wanted to revisit the asset management topic that we heard the last session. Given my penchant to think about things, I got back to it. And my understanding of it, and let me kind of put it in some terms that help me kind of frame my discussions. We're really taking some of our budget, and we'll call it $100, and we're going to dedicate some of that $100, call it $10, and no, these numbers aren't anywhere indicative of percentages or anything, to building up this plan and maintaining the database over time. And then what we are hoping is that we're going to gain some efficiency out of this that will allow us to actually accomplish more. As an example, we might be able to determine that this culvert that we now know is failing because we surveyed it, we can repair it in 2 years for maybe a cost of $10, as opposed to not have knowing and finding it catastrophically failing in 5 years for a cost of $30. Mm-hmm. It's this $20 there that we may be able to capture is our efficiency that we're hoping to go forward with. But that kind of comes down into how are we going to know and how are we going to understand this? Because while we may be more efficient in the numbers I put out there, if we're 20% more efficient in our ability to spend, well, we're 20% more efficient on $90. That gives us $108 worth of value out of that benefit. Whereas if we're only 5% more efficient, we're really only getting $95 worth of repair work done. So we're actually kind of losing a little bit. So the question I have is how are we going to understand which way the benefit is falling? And that's where I'd like to encourage the council in their future deliberations to consider some metrics that will help establish if we're getting back the benefits, not only the cost efficiencies, but the improvements of service that I know the council is really desiring to get out of this. If my understanding of it is, and we can get these things early, and save some money, well, we might be able to establish that the average state of degradation on these repairs, we'll see that decrease because we're getting to those things before they become catastrophic. We're going to see hopefully we're getting them to 2 and 3 stages if we got a 1 to 5 rather than to the 5. So one metric would be the average state of the asset that gets repaired when it actually gets repaired. We might want to see that number come down. Another would be the average cost of repairs would be one that we'd like to see come down because we'd like to see the efficiencies being achieved. Then we have some other ones that we get maybe from normal customer service, and this would be measuring more of the quality aspect of things. The number of tickets closed and the average time that takes to close a ticket are response times that we get from normal customer service. So hopefully we can kind of think about that, kind of establish some benchmarks now, and maybe use those in the 3 to 5 years going in to help us understand how we're going. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. And what you might do is either check with Mr. Kiefer or Darren Greenwood or Doug Alessio. And certainly a lot of the questions that you brought up were brought up by Vice Mayor Gary and Bob Warner, who was really getting into the weeds when we went through that discussion earlier. So they can elaborate in greater detail. So thank you for bringing those up. And now we have Don Meeker, Bruno Felice, and Joseph Rard.
Well, good evening, council and staff. Don Meeker, 2589 College Avenue. Tonight we're going to talk about January 17th, 1916, 100 years ago. There are 3 items of interest at this meeting. The city attorney, Luque, was instructed to notify Southern Pacific and Western Pacific to send representatives to the next Board of Trustees meeting, as there will be discussions about enlarging storm culverts at their First Street crossings. And 2, there are plans to purchase 300 pounds of lawn fertilizer for use at the park. This would be the library, Carnegie Library Park, which, by the way, is not considered a playground for children. And 3, the superintendent of the streets was instructed to give 40 days notice to property owners on L Street between First and College, as L Street is soon to be paved with sidewalks. And now for something completely different. I am not reapplying for the position of city historian. I, my wife, and her mother will be moving to Tacoma, Washington after April 3rd for 3 reasons. My family is in Washington State. Suitable housing is more available. Currently, Diana Carey and I live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath dwelling, and our 91-year-old mother lives in subsidized housing. And third, the weather is less brutal in the summer. We'll move no sooner than April 3rd because Diana is involved in the Spring Art Show at the Barn, April 2nd and 3rd, and I'm giving a talk at the Livermore Library Sunday, April 3rd at 2 o'clock entitled Livermore Before Google Earth. We have developed many friendships during our stay in Livermore and will surely become involved in community events wherever we land. Our most heartfelt regards as Livermore continues its development as a quality town to live in. Thank you for all the opportunities you have afforded us. My last task in Livermore history is researching 50 years of history of Livermore Cultural Arts Council, whose first meeting was October 10th, 1966. As time permits, I will continue providing Livermore governance history at the City Council Public Forum until our departure.
Thank you, Don. You've been a tremendous wealth of information and knowledge, and just adding a delightful part to the council meetings. So we look forward at least to the next couple of months. So thank you very much. You have served as our city historian and done a remarkable job. Thank you. Bruno Felice and Joseph Rard. Mr. Felice.
Good evening. My name is Bruno Felice, and I live in the Sevillano neighborhood here in Livermore. I purchased my home here in 2014, and I am being penalized by California Water Service Company with an unfair water budget. The reason being, I did not live here in 2013, the year these budgets were based on. When I first appealed my water budget in June of 2015, an appeal which was denied, I was informed I was given the district average as my budget rather than the actual usage at the property in 2013, or an average of my neighbors' budgets, whose homes are similar in size. I was told this is because I did not own the property in 2013, so actual data for that property could not be used. Here is that data. My allocation for 2015, based on this district average, ranged from 10 to 20 CCFs per month from June to December for those 6 months. The property in 2013, which is the data that they should be used for my allocation, but was not, had an average usage of 72 CCF per month. My neighbors, whose properties are in line with mine, have kindly shared their 2015 budgets with me, and their budgets were 3 to 5 times mine monthly budget. Because of my budget allocation being set ridiculously low for my size home and lot, I've been unfairly paying significant penalties, $1,450 so far through December. I'm afraid this will continue into the future as water budgets may be set on this faulty 2015 budget model. As mentioned, California Water Service has denied my appeal, and also ignored my further attempts to resolve this situation. And I have just submitted another appeal this past week. I bring this to your attention tonight so that you are aware this is going on in our community and that other citizens that have relocated here in recent years are likely facing some discriminatory situation from California Water Service Company. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Felice. Joseph Rard.
In 9 days, it will be the 4th anniversary of the death of the former mayor and former city councilman Donald Miller. At Don's funeral, there were 3 speakers. One was a daughter of his and Miriam's, who spoke of Don the man and Don the family man. Mayor Marchant spoke about Don's political activities, and I believe also his advocacy for the fine arts in Livermore. And I spoke of Don's scientific contribution. Don came to Livermore to work at what was then the Lawrence Radiation Laboratory, where he worked for many years. He was a respected scientist before he came to Livermore, and long after he retired. He continued scientific collaborations almost until he died, when his health no longer was permitted. The journal that I edit has since published a special issue in his honor that I would like to present to the mayor.
If you would please hand that to our city clerk, thank you very much. He was a great visionary for this community. And thank you for recognizing his contributions. Thank you. Okay, that's it. Yes, Vice Mayor?
If staff wouldn't mind, the gentleman with the water situation, could you get his copy of his letter and exchange contact info just in case he leaves before the end of the meeting, so staff can do whatever they can to assist him with Cal Water? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the...
Mayor, I submitted a card a little while ago, about 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
I don't know if it's still sitting there.
Okay, Mr. Bezos, I do not have your card, but maybe we can, if you would be so kind.
Good evening. I'm calling here again tonight to talk about sales taxes, transportation sales tax. I'm holding here $125. This is the amount of the tax increase that each Livermore resident, man, woman, and child will pay this year. A total of $10 million is going to come from Livermore for that Measure BB, $125 per person. And I should note that the majority of Livermore residents oppose that tax increase, but the entire council, or everyone on the council right now, supported that tax increase. But I'm here tonight to speak about, after a one-year investigation, after reviewing public records from BART and ACTC, I am troubled, saddened, and very bothered to report that the Alameda County Transportation Commission is engaged in corrupt practices. Taxpayer funds were illegally used to promote passage of the election. All of this literature I have here in my hands, this is produced by ACTC with taxpayer dollars. This is illegal. This is illegal under 2 Supreme Court opinions, Stenson v. Mott in 1976 and Vargas versus City of Salinas from 2009. This is supposed to be, you can put fair informational material out, but it has to be a fair presentation of the facts. This is not a fair presentation of the facts. It mentions nowhere in all this literature says it was a tax increase. It just says positive things about it. Plus, there's a document from BART which says that ACTC exaggerated the claims about benefits to BART. So this is disturbing. And plus, this all has the style, tenor, and timing of campaign material. This is illegal. It even says Measure BB on it. It was after it was placed on the ballot on July 8th of 2014. So they wouldn't have known. It was obviously produced, some of this, after it was placed on the ballot. That's very significant. So why am I coming here tonight? I'm coming here tonight because I believe Mayor Marchand or Vice Mayor Gary will be, there's an ACTC meeting this Thursday where the law firm is on, it's a $1.1 million no bid contract for the law firm. And here's the bombshell. The same law firm that was general counsel to ACTC, the public entity, throughout the development and during the election, and you have it in this packet I'm giving you, exhibits B, C, and D, was also simultaneously the attorney for the Yes on BB campaign. You had a double agent. You had the attorney for the Yes on BB campaign working literally as the attorney for ACTC. This I do not think is ethical or legal under the rules of California for professional responsibility, which I outline in a letter. I am bothered that the board packet for this meeting on Thursday, ACTC, it's item 6.8. I have all the material here. It makes no mention. I went to the Watchdog Committee ACTC last July, and the attorney there even admitted that he worked simultaneously. But, you know, this needs to be looked into, and it's a $1.2 million no-bid contract. And I think immediately, as in tonight, whoever is casting Livermore's vote on that commission on Thursday needs to explain what's going to happen from this point forward. Because everyone's wallets here are going to be $125 lighter per capita at the end of the year. And I think the citizens deserve something. And I have the letters here, and I do expect either matters initiated or at some point in the meeting to have a discussion, because there cannot be this silence. And I have presented for the audience these concerns previously by email earlier this month, and it wasn't even placed on the agenda. So this is one of the most disturbing things I've seen, in the last 10 years has come out of the city.
Thank you, Mr. Bezos. For the record, I am the representative to the by the city of Livermore to ACTC, so I will be attending that meeting on Thursday, and I will ask the commission at that time to follow up with this. Thank you.
That might be too late. I think you need to state tonight, I've given you the information, Mayor, in advance. So I think there needs to be discussion or something on the council. Maybe you need to talk to him.
Per the Brown Act, we are not allowed to discuss an item that is not on the agenda.
Sir, you can explain your reaction to the emails I've sent. You can say your reaction to what I presented to you there. It's in plain English there. The law firm BC.
Thank you, Mr. Bezos. Thank you. Two cards on the consent calendar. Okay, 4.03, 4.04. We have, let's see, first off, is there anything that any of the council members would like to pull for discussion?
Well, I was going to pull just for a comment on 4.04, but I'll wait for the...
Okay, in that case, we've got Gail Travers wishes to comment on 4.04, the general plan amendment on Central Avenue, and 4.03 on Central Avenue, and 4.04, the ground lease with the Livermore Heritage Guild on the Hageman Farm. So Gail Travers.
Good evening. Gail Travers, 1117 Marigold Road, Springtown. In reviewing the agenda for this evening's meeting, I was surprised to see mention of yet another new housing development on the horizon. Although tonight's council action only involves considering allowing review of the general plan amendment this project requires, concurrently with consideration of the necessary zoning change in the project itself, I felt it important to share my concerns about this project early on. I'm concerned about the current pace of residential development in Livermore and in Springtown in particular. It seems as if new home construction is occurring throughout Livermore at an accelerating pace. The proposed development of 48 single-family homes on the mostly vacant land between Central Avenue and North Front Road is following right on the heels of the 58 townhouse units currently being constructed on Bluebell. And they are in addition to the densely packed single-family homes being built on First Street and the crowded complex of townhomes under construction at the intersection of First Street and Portola. A concerted effort appears to be underway in North Livermore to fill in every vacant piece of land as quickly as possible with as many residential units as will fit and can get approved. Over the past few months, I've heard many residents speak at this podium urging our City Council to proceed with caution in considering future residential development in Livermore. Yet it seems as if the pace of these development projects has only increased, And their designs appear to be driven more by the needs of the developers in terms of costs and return than by the desires of residents, either new or existing. And why is so much of this new higher density residential development being concentrated in Springtown and North Livermore? As has been pointed out before, Springtown still lacks important services for its existing residents. If we want coffee, fast food, or gas, we're all set. But we must cross the freeway to go to the supermarket, take our clothes to the cleaners, enjoy a meal at a fine restaurant, or go to the doctor. We don't want to be a bedroom community, and we don't want to become a place that people just pass through on the way to wherever else they're going. We desire a balanced, quality community with service-based businesses located north of the freeway for use by our own residents. And we don't need any more cars on Springtown streets. Springtown is connected to the rest of Livermore by just two main roads, First Street and Vasco Road. Although it's possible to use back roads to leave Springtown, those routes are out of the way and extend trips to town by 4 to 5 miles and at least 15 to 20 minutes each way in non-commute hours. We already deal with traffic created by commuters from outside of our community who jump off the freeway trying to cut past freeway backups. And as most families have at least 2 cars, the 106 new families who would move into the new 58-unit and 48-unit developments would bring over 200 more cars onto our streets every day. And as these new residents must leave Springtown for most of their needs, they likely won't be biking. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Travers. Just to make a couple of comments, in 2002 there was a concerted effort by the community to create an urban growth boundary so that there would be no more urban sprawl and green field development. In other words, destroying open green fields to preserve that urban growth boundary around our community. And at that point, the decision was made, and over 10,000 people signed that petition to create this urban growth boundary. And the understanding was they would grow inside, and we would do infill development instead. So that's the reason that we're filling in these little infill developments. One of the reasons why there's a higher density, for example, on Portola and Brighton Newtown Village, is people want a home that's 1,500 to 1,800 square feet, but at $2.4 million to the acre, to get a house that size, you have to have smaller yards. And the other thing that I hear frequently is young people can't live in Livermore. They have to move out of the area. So in order to have that type of housing, you have smaller lots, which then enables young people to be able to afford to buy in this community. So it's a difficult balancing act, but we're doing the best we can with that. So that's why you see what we're doing is we're not bulldozing the green fields. We're growing inside, and we're doing the infill development, and that's what the community wanted back in 2002. We fought very hard for that, and that's something that we're going to keep working to get it right. So thank you, Mr. Caskey, 4.04, doing a great job out there, by the way.
Thank you
One
very
of those great
kindly.
success stories.
And I am Jeff Caskey, the president of the Livermore Heritage Guild. I'm really here to say thanks to you, and in particular to staff. And I wanted to call out Jean and Eric over here, who have done an incredible job of helping us find our way through managing the Hageman Ranch. 1 year ago, you approved our first contract, and we showed up here with a lot of hope, perhaps a rather deep void of experience, however. And today, the Heritage Guild is the property manager. We have 3 nonprofits on site. If you give me just a second, I'd like to call them out. One is Fertile Groundworks. They operate their Heritage Garden, which showcases cultivars representing a historic kitchen garden from approximately the right era of the house and property. And the produce is contributed to Open Heart Kitchen and other local food banks. Sunflower Hill is cultivated about an acre, and they've provided over 7,000 pounds of food to local food banks and kitchens, and they've used their edible garden as a program to provide meaningful activities to special needs children and adults, which is really their mission, and it's an incredible program if you get a chance to see that. 4-H has recently joined, and so we were bringing horses back to the ranch, and that's very exciting for us and for the neighbors. We started out with some concerns about, oh dear, what happens when you bring horses and there's smell in the neighborhood. The neighbors love it. They've been asking how long it'll take to get the horses on site. And now 4-H is there. 4-H runs their program completely with rescued horses from abused and poorly taken care of conditions, and they use them in their training and riding programs. Now the Guild has done over 1,000 hours of cleaning, preserving, assessing, restoring. Activities have ranged from finding explosive gas leaks last week and water leaks to restoring historic wooden windows. We're providing for safety, security, and we've conducted historic tours. We have a caretaker on the site. We've brought in volunteers to restore buildings. We have our first building properly restored and repainted, which is the granary, which we were all excited to see. It's one of the first of many projects that we have in mind there. So, not the first, one of the many projects we have going on out there for restoration. This year, we hope to do yet much more, and we appreciate your support. Again, we appreciate staff support. We look forward to seeing you out there, and we're going to keep at it, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Caskey. Great job.
Make a quick comment.
Councilmember Turner?
Don't go too far. That, I just have to speak up. That site is just so truly special. And when there were problems out there, I know it hurt the hearts and souls of a lot of people. And to see all that's been done now, I mean, the people that had the vision to purchase this, I wasn't on the council at that point, to save this piece of our history and our tradition and all that, had such wonderful foresight, and that you guys have stepped up to make sure that this becomes really a jewel of our community and a connection to our past and our history is just amazing, and that you've gotten such wonderful groups that are serving the community yet serving themselves at the same time. It's just brilliant. And everything out there, it's looking better every day. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for all of your efforts out there, because I was one of those whose soul was hurting when there was problems out there, and it just has such unreal potential. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very kindly. It's our pleasure, really.
It is where the Tri-Valley began.
Yeah, the mayor also had.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I was gonna pull it, because I was like, oh, it's on the consent calendar. We need to talk about this. The Heritage Guild and staff, I can't thank you enough for getting together and doing this and figuring out a way to make it work. I've been to a couple of Sunflower Hill events on the site, and they are just absolutely amazing. You wouldn't believe what happened in the first month or two on site, let alone now the first year. You've set the bar so high. So if you're, if this is a preview of what's to come, I can't wait to see more. And I'm very excited that Fertile Groundworks is there, and they're with their garden and flourishing. And I'm very happy to hear that 4-H is involved and that you're getting horses back on the site. I know that was a bit of a concern of providing some type of equestrian activity, therapy, and it's great. I can't echo what Councilmember Turner said enough. It's a wonderful site, and people should get out there to visit. And I hope you provide more information on how people can visit and when. And it's a great site. And I thoroughly enjoyed the barn owl. Every time I'm out there, we're looking for the barn owl.
I was going to mention that for others, that it is Councilmember Spadovsky's photo of the barn owl that we've used in some of our posters up there. So.
Well, he was posing, and I just had the camera, so I just snapped it there. But no, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That's great. Doing a great job. Thank you. Okay, that's any further discussion on the consent calendar? Do I have a motion?
I'll move the consent calendar.
Moved by the Vice Mayor.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Turner. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Public hearings, we don't have one. Moving on to matters, nothing, there's no appointments. Let's see, can we combine 6.02 and 6.03? Do we want to throw 6.04 in there as well? Or move just the two? Okay. All right. So 6.02, 6.03, this is discussion and direction regarding restructuring the Commission for the Arts and the Art in Public Places and program policies. I know that there was a lot of work done on that for a long time. I appreciate all of the efforts. And then also the resolution amending the Art in Public Places program policy and procedures manual. So with that, we have Eric Aranga and Rebecca Cox.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Eric Uranga, and I'm the your Assistant Community and Economic Development Director. Tonight before you is a request to consider changes to Section 2.43 and 12.51 of the city's municipal code, as well as changes to the policy and procedures for the Commission for the Arts. These ordinance and procedures outline the rules and requirements for the city's Commission for the Arts. The Livermore City Council created the Commission for the Arts in 2004 in recognition of the community's interest in the development and promotion of the arts. The council's intent was, at that time, was to provide a mechanism that would encourage long-range cultural arts planning for the community and encourage stronger cooperation, coordination, and partnership with local arts groups, the city, and its residents. The duties of the Commission include development of art priorities, creation of an annual art budget, approving requests for city art funds, and the approval of public art. Since the enactment of the ordinance, staff and the Commission have run up against numerous hurdles in determining the appropriate role of the Commission when it comes to the actively promoting and developing arts, as outlined in the ordinance. This has led to significant delays in the development of new programs and projects. At the September 28th, 2015 council meeting, staff proposed a number of changes to the original ordinance to refine funding process, define and clarify commission roles, reduce potential conflicts of interest, and decrease administrative costs. Council instructed staff to discuss these changes further with the commission and return to council with a recommendation. Over the last several months, staff has met with an ad hoc governance committee appointed by the Commission for the Arts, comprised of commission members as well as the full Commission for the Arts. Discussions with these groups focused around three related areas of improvement. One, refining the process and procedures for allocation of public art funds, clarifying the Commission's mission and structure, and reducing administrative costs. Through these discussions, a consensus was reached on the following changes. We can get the slide up, Neil? Thank you. Following changes, one was keep the number of commissioners at 9. We had previously proposed reducing it to 7. Keep meetings monthly. We had originally proposed to reduce that to a quarterly meetings, but provide mini grants up to $1,000 and have them reviewed and approved quarterly. Project and program grants from $1,000 to $10,000 reviewed and approved twice per year. Public art grants over $10,000, over $10,000 reviewed and approved annually. To eliminate the cultural arts fee task force provision of the ordinance. Increase administrative portion of the public arts fee from 10 to 15%, and emphasize the setting of art priorities and proposing funding recommendations as being becoming the Commissioner's primary roles. These items were recommended for approval by the ad hoc committee and brought forward to the full commission by the ad hoc committee and received voter approval by the full commission. To clarify these points more fully, historically the commission allocated funds through a funding application procedure that received applications each month on a first-come basis. Typically, the commission reviewed only a single application at the time, and thus applications were not reviewed in comparison to other requests. Staff proposed and commission supports the creation of a formal funding application process. This process would have the commission meet at specific times throughout the year, review all funding requests together, and recommend funding the most appropriate programs and projects. These funding applications would be broken down into specific categories based on what's up there on the slide, based on the type of project and the level of funding requests. The Commission will evaluate the variety of art projects and programs submitted, and determine which best meet the priorities established by the Commission for that year. Apologize, I need a little bit more light. It's tough getting old, I tell you. The Commission would would make funding decisions quarterly for grant awards at or below $1,000, biannually for grants requests ranging from $1,000 to $10,000 in size, and annually for funding requests above $10,001. Any request for funding above $1,000 will require council consideration and approval after the commission has made its recommendation. The commission, along with this discussion, was the Commission of Arts has been supported by 2 city staff, a staff liaison and an administrative support person. The cost associated with providing staff support far exceeds the amount allocated for administrative expenses under the ordinance. Under the current ordinance, a maximum of 10% of the amount of public art in lieu contributions that the city receives each year can be utilized for staffing and administrative expenses. To address administrative costs, the commission and staff propose increasing the amount of the in lieu fees that can be used to fund administrative expenses from 10 to 15%. What's on the page? Okay. The commission also recommends, as part of the next budget cycle, the council dedicate a part-time resource to support the commission. Staff will evaluate this request in the context of citywide staffing needs and return to the council with a recommendation during the next budget process. The Cultural Arts Fee Task Force provision of the ordinance calls for a biannual convening of the task force to make recommendations to council on the amount of the in lieu fee. The removal of the sunset provision of the Art in Public Places program by council last November 23rd eliminates this ordinance requirement to convene a task force and review the program every 2 years. So staff recommends the removal of this provision, along with allowing council to convene a task force at its discretion. After much discussion, the commission did not reach a concession whether future commissions would be allowed to serve on the commission while also serving as a board member or officer of the arts organization that receives city funding. Serving on both the Commission for the Arts while also holding a formal leadership position with an arts organization has been an ongoing concern with staff. In the past, requests for funds have come from organizations whose board members and officers were also members of the Commission for the Arts. This creates an awkward situation where those applying for funds also approve the funding, often creating a potential conflict of interest. Excluding oneself from votes when this occurs often means that one or more commissioners are not allowed to vote on the many applications that are received. Staff recommends council approve changes to the ordinance to no longer allow future commission members to serve while also serving as an officer or board member of an arts group that receives city art funding. Non-officer members, persons on the board, not on the board, performers, and volunteers would still be eligible to be members of the commission. Now, this is an item that the commission has felt strongly about and has had much discussion over and could not reach consensus on how this rule applies. Staff looking at it feels strongly that board members commission members should not also be members of outside boards or officers on those boards. But again, that was something that the commission also had a differing set of views on. With the proposed changes to the commission duties, the role of the commission will change, we feel will change from that of an active promoter and developer of arts programs and projects to a commission that is primarily responsible for reviewing and recommending funding applications, recommending public art, and establishing the city's art priorities and budget for the year. That concludes my report. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have. In addition, Monia Lane, a member of the Commission for the Arts, as well as the chair of the ad hoc committee, would like to address the council.
Let's see if there's any questions first. Okay. Questions from the council members?
Not until I hear from you.
Okay. Ms. Lane.
Thank you for the opportunity. Honorable Mayor and City Council members, these comments are on behalf of the Commission for the Arts. The City of Livermore has been a robust supporter of the arts. founding the Arts Alive Cultural Arts Plan in 2007, under which the Commission for the Arts operates and makes recommendations to the City Council for funding of public arts projects. Together, there have been many accomplishments, which are now visible on the new public art website, and which last year included utility box painting, bus shelter murals, the bronze sculpture at the Outlet Mall, the tower sculpture at the airport, the Harrington Sculpture Gift, mini grant awards, annual high school scholarship awards, and elementary school cultural programs. In this context, over a year ago, Commission members and staff started updating the Art in Public Places Policy and Procedures Manual, last amended by the City Council in 2009, to improve the grant application process for public art funds, change outdated language, and address some of the misperceptions that have arisen over time. There has been great teamwork in recent months to resolve concerns about these changes. And we sincerely hope the results meet with the City Council approval so we can proceed with the business, including the annual planning of public art priorities for City Council consideration in April. We'd like to point out two key results of this effort, which Eric has mentioned. One is to emphasize that the new RFP template will be the sole process to generate proposals for funding, improving broad access to artists of all genres on a regular and more transparent schedule. Examples on your agenda this evening are an RFP for this year's Art in the Schools and an RFP for downtown sculptures. Second, we'd like to reinforce the importance of dedicating a part-time administrative resource in the next budget cycle, and as such, we are proposing to increase the percentage of the in lieu arts fee that contributes to administrative costs from 10% now up to 15%. There are a few other related outcomes of this work to improve commission effectiveness that are worth noting as well. We've started in the commission to draft a basic operating handbook for our monthly commission meetings with easy-to-use sections such as the city's annual planning and budget schedule, Brown Act protocols, conflict of interest standards, and the RFP process flowchart. We also intend to improve our communication with the City Council, starting with the opportunity to present the annual report on commission activities scheduled in April. Last but not least, we do strongly recommend that consideration for new commissioners in currently open positions include the goal to increase much-needed diversity of membership on the commission. In summary, we believe these combined improvements will serve the city well, focusing the Commission for the Arts on the key duties and responsibilities in alignment with City Council goals and priorities, and thank you for time on the council agenda this evening.
Well, thank you very much. Certainly appreciate all of your work on this. Questions at this point? I do not have any speaker cards on this. I think Ms. Lane was the representative to speak on behalf of the Commission for the Arts. And what's exciting for me is having been a founding member of this Commission for the Arts. And it was a lot easier back in 2004 because we didn't have any money. All we could do was just dream and create that art plan. But now to see this grow and evolve and to see some of the wonderful things that are going on around this community is very exciting for me. Having no artistic talent of my own, I can certainly appreciate it. So thank you for all of your efforts on that. I do have some questions, but are there any other questions at this point?
Sure, just a quick question. Have we ever had a high school or Las Positas student on the Commission for the Arts?
Not that we're aware of, no.
Okay. I don't know if we necessarily need to put this in the code itself, but I would like to open up or throw it out there for maybe advertising at the, I don't think there's anything that would restrict a high school or college student from applying, but I really think that we should reach out to the arts programs and see if we can maybe get that kind of representation. If you're talking about diversifying the group a little bit more, that may be a good idea. I don't know. I'm seeing nodding heads and not glares, so that's a good thing. If I feel the eyes burning, then I kind of stop.
I think Arturo was a Las Positas College student, wasn't he? Arturo Berengue?
I think he was a little older than that.
Yeah, but I believe he attended Las Positas.
Okay. Sure. So, I mean,
and he was on the commission.
Maybe, at one point I was thinking maybe we could put it into the code that it should be a high school and or college student. But I think maybe if we focus on that in the next rounds, that might be something that we could look at. Promoting it in the schools, and we do have young artists. You see the bus shelters. Maybe somebody would be interested there, and it would be a great experience for a college student or high school student.
I think having the awareness of that, but I harken back to this young man that I worked with who was actually the recipient of an award in the arts at one of the high schools. And when I had mentioned that we were going to see a painting by Rubens, he'd never heard of him. He'd also never heard of Da Vinci, which was really, so if we say, well, you have to belong to this group, if we're aware that we would like to attract that diversity, but to say that you have to pick somebody of this that goes there, and what if there are other people that are more qualified?
That's why I'm stopping from suggesting that we actually put it in the code. So that was my initial inclination, but I think maybe the
awareness.
Yeah.
I think the fact that we have the awareness that we would encourage across the spectrum.
Yeah.
And what's art? Are we talking performing arts, visual arts? This the whole wide range. So I appreciate the thought, and I think the maintaining that awareness. So great. Councilmember Turner?
I have a problem with one of the recommendations, and I'm surprised you guys didn't bring it up. And I understand where staff's going with and what they want, but requiring that future commissioners not serve on the commission while also serving as board members or officers of an art organization. I would assume that's where we get the majority of our commissioners. And I can understand the conflict of interest needs. So perhaps not an officer of an art organization requesting funds or something else, or even just putting in language that they recuse themselves of any votes related to funding from their own individual organizations. And I'm sure they already do that. And I can understand when we're looking at money that I don't want Mayor Marchand, who's on the board of the Kleenex box company, asking for Kleenex money. That it makes sense to not have the board members on there. But given that this is art organizations and there's only so many volunteers in the community in the first place, I kind of would like that massaged a little bit more, because I don't want to preclude, especially when it's so vague. You can't be an officer of an art organization. Well, what do we, and that's just, I'm just reading that from the staff report, not the ordinance. The ordinance might be more specific. But I'd like that piece stricken, but I don't know how my peers up here feel about that. And like I said, I understand staff's rationale for transparency and ensuring that we don't have somebody that's the requester for funds sitting next to the person that's giving the funds. That's always a sticky little situation, and I understand that. But I don't want to preclude all of the leaders in our organization that serve on boards from being on this commission. And so that's kind of where I'm stuck with this piece, and would love my peers to also chime in on that if they feel like it. But I would be inclined to get rid of that piece or reword it such that we open it up, because and I'm seeing people that are really smiling over there. And like I said, I was surprised you didn't bring it up in your speak. Maybe you thought there was no hope, and that's why you chose to do that. But I'm certainly open to discussing that specific piece if anybody else up on here is as well.
And then to be just very clear, the actual language is not any art group or any board position. It basically has two parts. Potential members may not hold a board or officer position in any arts organization that applies for public funds from the city. So that's the key. It's the funds and the art organization together. So
if the art organization applied for funds 10 years ago and hasn't since, they still can't serve?
The issue there is essentially the concept of those two things being together in time. Now, obviously, if somebody resigned yesterday and I apply today, and then they reapply tomorrow, that's sort of an end around other, but they can't be at the same time. But if they were a period of time ago, years ago, and then years ago somebody gave money, it doesn't mean that somebody from fill in the blank, LVPAC, couldn't apply 2 years from now if they don't have a board member on there at the same time. The concept there is trying to get those two items to not be at the same place in the same time. So if you had an officer from your organization on this group, it would mean while that officer both was on the commission and on your board, that organization couldn't get money. But if either one of those two stopped, you stopped being a board member or you stopped being on the commission, your group again would be eligible. That's literally how it's written. But the conflict is trying to basically have the same people who direct the application, the officers, not be the same people over here or their peers who exactly review that. If you're one of the army of volunteers underneath that, that's fine, but it's the two sets of decision makers are trying to not be at the same place in the same time dealing with public money is the staff recommendation.
Well, for example, with LCAC, you can't be a board member of LCAC and also represent an organization.
Right.
So you
And
can't,
like I said,
you
it
can't
makes
do both.
sense, but it just seems like we're kind of cutting off a huge amount of people in our community. Although we do have a huge amount of people that want to serve, which is fantastic, but I'm open. Like I said, I'm open. I just kind of have a problem with that piece.
Vice Mayor?
Maybe this was discussed, and first of all, I appreciate the extra lap of collaboration that the commission members and the staff did on this, because this is difficult. This is not a city of 1 million people. It's a city of 80-some thousand, and blessed with a lot of arts activists and groups in town. Did you perhaps narrow the definition some by saying there's probably a small handful, less than a handful of groups who apply every grant cycle for funding, and to maybe come up with a narrower list? I'm shaking heads no. It's random. No one ever applies 2-3 times a row.
Maybe over the years, but not years.
Because I was about to suggest if there were 2 or 3 perennial organizations that the conflict is almost guaranteed year after year to exist from, you could specify those in particular. The other thing would be to look at the quorum voting rules and perhaps restrict co-participation by number of chairs to maybe 1, to say, if you just have no other commissioners and it means going without or whatever, maybe you write that rule, because frankly, if you had a couple of absences and a couple of recusals, you don't have a quorum, and on the timeline we're now on with the RFP and the funding and the annual budget, at some point you have to move the issue and recommend funding proposals to us. So I don't know how you resolve that. I think all 4 of us, 5 if even Councilmember Werner were here, this is the appropriate legal ethical way to run the railroad, which is to prohibit basically dual roles. I mean, it's just not done in good government. And I'm not saying everybody follows the law, but this city, we certainly try to. And we've all had ethics training by the League of Cities, and we're trying to do the right thing here. So we're sensitive to the resonant message that Council Member Turner represented, but in the end of the day, if some newspaper ran a story on Commissioner so-and-so voted their own group X of a grant, it doesn't look right, even if there was no intent of impropriety. So I just wondered if staff looked at quorum voting or maybe restricting by type of ancillary organization.
So our short answer is we looked at sort of a variety of more brutal, less brutal, and tried to sort of thread the needle here. We're threading a legal issue, which is an absolute floor. Your city attorney could say, hey, I could design a couple ways around this. You can basically do this and that, and you'd meet the technical letter of the law, and you would be right. We could have something essentially less assertive that would meet the absolute minimum to keep you and us and the commission out of jail. While that's an important consideration, and we don't want to discount that, in this particular case, staff's recommending essentially a more assertive standard because of the appearance. And that's a fluffy thing. We are aware that it's a hardship on those who wish to be on the commission and those who wish to run these key art organizations in the community. But the thought was essentially the simultaneousness of the people directing an application and those, even if it's their peers reviewing it, we saw one of two possible outcomes. Outcome one is not wanting to anger the person sitting next to you in all the other meetings. You would, give consideration in a particularly positive way. Item two, you try and bend over backwards to be rougher on this particular application to remove the appearance, and either of those would sort of be a disadvantage to what the overall mission is trying to do. And then the third outcome is neither of those would happen. It would work perfectly. There would be no glitch, but from the outside looking in, having applications that from time to time were submitted by a group that then was essentially approved by a group that was very closely aligned created at least a concern that staff had, at the very base level of the legality, but even a click up from that, from your perspective as the council of trying to ensure, in this case, since it is a lot of money, if it were $50 a year, I don't think there would be any question from your staff of saying, it's not a big deal. But this is hundreds of thousands of dollars, over the long run that will be ultimately dedicated to this purpose, and we think the purpose is incredibly important. And so that's why we threaded the needle in this particular way. There are other possibilities. But this one seemed to balance the appearance issue, and we could just be really clear on whether you were meeting the standard. There were some other standards that were proposed that we would have to get really invasive to figure out whether the standard's being met or not. And this one was at the same time for a particular period. This was easy for us to impose, and it was also easy for us to sort of say to somebody who might criticize the process, they're a member of the organization, they're not a board member, it's completely fine because it's very clearly laid out in the code. But we understand, and the commission itself wrestled with this issue and had fundamental disagreements inside the commission. I mean, this is a tough one, and we get that.
Mayor, one point to that. I think the
Stosky.
first go around we were actually talking about restricting it so members couldn't serve on the committee, and that's, in thinking about it and reading through the staff report, I do feel for the organizations that are smaller, because if you have an organization that's 200 people and you're all members, then okay, you can't serve as an officer while you're on this committee. That's fine, you can participate, but a smaller group, maybe the officers and not much else going on. So I do, feel for the groups that have the less resources than the larger groups. But at the same time, I've served on committees and commissions where issues have come up over conflict of interest, and it is not fun for anybody involved when that comes up, in particular when you are dealing with large sums of money. So I can understand the need to separate the officers, but I'm glad to see that we're not going as far as interpreting it as members. That to me would have been a non-starter with this issue. So.
Yeah, as I pointed out earlier, it was easy when we didn't have money, and I didn't belong to any arts organization because I'm not an artist. So it was easy in the beginning, but it got much more difficult as we had people that were members and officers of art organizations, and at the same time, and as the city manager pointed out, these are great dedicated people in our community, and upstanding, and there is no collusion, but it's the appearance, and that's what we're concerned about is the optics on this, and I think that's what the city manager pointed out, is that how do you thread that needle? Another question, another point?
Yeah, I just have a question. How do we handle this for the Human Services Commission? Do we preclude folks that serve on boards and commissions that might be applying for funds through the Human Services Commission from sitting on that commission? She just went home.
For the most part, the Human Service Commission, as I understand it, is not made up of folks who apply. Most, if not all, of the commission members are just members of the public at large, and not nonprofits who would normally apply.
But do we specifically preclude people that are asking for funding from the commission from serving on the board?
No, because conflict of interest issues haven't arisen by the commission because of its makeup. Yeah.
So it hasn't come up?
It has not.
We have not had an officer or a member of a funding organization apply for money when a member or officer of that organization was on the commission. And it's simply because the groups are chosen from two different groups of people. One is, are the groups we fund are professional organizations versus, in this particular case, it's some of the same volunteer people volunteering in a different capacity. In the case of the commission, it's volunteers on your commission reviewing essential applications from professional organizations. And so the crossover, we haven't bumped into that crossover. But bluntly, it would be the same exact issue if it ever came up. We just have never had that particular issue to deal with.
I had a couple of just more some it's not the policy considerations, but just some information in the appendices and in the I guess the Arts Alive. There were several murals that were referenced in some of the tables, but were not on the maps. For example, the Livermore Wine Country mural at J Street and First, the Tassavegan mural, that was referenced in some of the tables, but not on the maps. Similarly, the Josefa Higuera mural on L Street between 2nd and 3rd was referenced in tables, but not on the maps. I was just curious why the difference.
Is it? Well, go ahead, Rebecca.
Excuse me. Hi, Rebecca Cox. Let me pick my words here. The guide that we created does not include art that is not owned or maintained by the city.
Okay.
So if some of the tables in the Arts Alive document still maintain those listings, it is our intent at some point to update the Arts Alive document, and we would take care of those at that time. So they may have been listed in the past, but going forward, we thought since the city did not have any control over those artworks, we wouldn't know if things changed to them, and so we were only going to list the items that we had control over. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So they're not publicly owned, but
they were created by private entities. In some cases, like the mural on the side of Strizzi's,
yeah, that was
the city donated money towards that, but it's not owned by the
the Art
city or
Commission.
maintained by the city.
I was there and we obtained the funding for that. Yeah. That's interesting. But so my concern is if we create a map of art in the downtown, you wouldn't have that on the map. And it's a wonderful piece of art. The same thing with the Josefa Higuera
we struggled
as well.
with that.
Yeah. And you make a very good point, and we would be glad to include it in because it is to make a comprehensive catalog of all of the art, significant art.
So we don't include it in the asset management plan, but we include it on the public art.
Sure.
Because there's some really cool stuff. There's the one behind Mel's, with Mel and the balloon there.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
And the one at Sansar, privately owned, but it's still public. I believe it's art in the public domain. It's within the part of our arts community in the downtown, our art district. Okay. And I think that's one of these that makes it very vibrant and alive.
We got to include them.
Okay, so good. So with that, also with the art. The sculptures in the downtown. I saw the proposals for the RFP for the sculptures. When I first started talking about that, I was thinking this as an art gallery sort of concept, where the artists would have their art on display, the sculptures on display in the downtown, and to be for sale. A couple of things. This way, you could change the art periodically, and secondly, it didn't cost us as much money, so it's a savings. So is that continuing to evolve? Are we going to buy some artwork outright and then adopt this gallery idea later?
Yeah. We see them as two separate proposals that aren't mutually exclusive. So. The Commission went out and identified 15 different sites that would be suitable in the downtown for sculptures. The request for RFP is for 4 of those sites, and it would be city. They would be used. Art in lieu fees would be used to purchase them. They would be city-owned pieces of art. The other sites could be used for the concept that you bring up of the gallery type, public gallery type approach. Currently, the commission and staff are looking into that and how it would work, the feasibility of it and the process, and have not concluded that. But it still has not been formally ruled out, and we will take our recommendation to council at a later date. Yeah.
All right, very good. Okay, that's, and we're going back up to 9.
Yes.
If this passes, we're going back to 9.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions, comments? This is for 6.02, 6.03. And Mr. Bezos, I do have your card for 6.01, but we had kind of jumped ahead, so we'll get to you in a moment. So this is for 6.02, 6.03. Do we have a motion? 6.02 and 03.
Can we do those together?
I think we can do them both combined, can't we?
My vote changes.
Okay, all right. So, okay, so we have a 6.02. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval of item 6.02.
Okay, moved by Councilor Spadowski. Do I have a second?
I'll second with a request to staff, not part of the motion, but just explaining my second. Sometimes when you try things, you learn from them. And I think that the next time this commission goes out for applications and fills seats, I'd like a report back to this or the future council. And let's see, we suspect there might be friction, but if there's not, there's not. So let's just keep an open mind on this. We're going to try the very bright line transparency test if this motion passes. And if so, I'd like staff to keep an eye on it. And let's deal with it once we learn more, would be my approach.
Okay, very good. Moved by Councilor Spadowski, seconded by Vice Mayor Gary. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Passes 3-1. On to
Mayor Marchand, would you please read into the record that who had the opposing vote?
Okay, the vote's 3-1. Councilmember Turner voting no. On to 6.03. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Moved by Councilmember Turner, seconded by Vice Mayor Gary. Any discussion on the motion? Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good evening. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That 6.03 passes unanimously. Thank you. And now we have to backtrack a little bit here. We jumped ahead. This is the first time we've ever had a speaker on 6.01.
I have a point of order question.
Yes.
If there's no, this is for staff and direction from us on board and commission appointments, not the business of the boards and commissions we serve on. That's matters initiated. So we bypassed this agenda item because there was no report from staff or the chair this evening.
Discussion of direction regarding city appointments.
It's agendized as appointments, not open comment time on the dozens of boards and commissions we serve on.
So this is discussion of, excellent point.
Well, I'm not the city attorney.
City attorney?
So if there are no action items, there's nothing to proceed on for item 6.01. So if there's no action item, it's like it doesn't exist on your agenda.
Okay, very good then. All right. Thank you. So move this to Citizens Forum for the next time. Thank you. Moving on to 6.04. This is the resolution, the issuance of the RFPs for 2 public art programs, the sculpture project in the downtown, and also the Art in Schools project.
Yes. Mayor and commissioners. Oh, and council members, sorry. The Commission for the Arts has identified the placement of outdoor sculptures within the Cultural Arts District as a public art priority this year and has identified 4 locations for art to be installed. One of these locations is in front of Double Barrel and First Street Ale House, and both business owners are excited about the placement of a small sculpture in front of their business. Livermore Downtown Inc. and the Chamber have also been contacted and expressed support of this project. The Commission's recommendation of final sculptures and locations will be brought back to you for approval in May. Staff is asking for an appropriation of $120,000 in public art funds for the purchase and installation of the sculptures. And the second half of this item is the RFP for Art in the Schools program. And the city has offered this program for the past 3 years. However, there was never an RFP issued to solicit proposals from the community. This RFP will provide an open, competitive process to select artists or art groups to provide this service. Staff and the Commission have been pleased with the services provided by the 2 organizations that have been used for the past 3 years, and we hope that those groups will submit proposals in response to this RFP. We're also interested to see if there are other art groups with the desire to provide art enrichment to our students. Staff is asking for an appropriation of $6,000 in public art funds, $3,000 for this fiscal year and $3,000 for the next fiscal year for this program. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Questions? Okay, you already answered mine. One question I've got is, what are city municipalities?
Well, we intended those to be city organizations, other cities that if an arts organization or an artist has worked with other cities or other districts or groups within a city.
It also include agencies, any public entity.
Organization within a city.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You seem kind of, it for me it seemed redundant, but that's just me.
It's my first RFP.
Okay. All these terms I'm not familiar with. Okay.
Okay.
Anybody wish to speak on the item? Questions at this point, I guess.
Just a quick comment for my commissioners over there as well as you guys. I love the downtown. I love that we're putting artwork in the downtown, but I also want us to focus on North Livermore, Springtown area, and other sectors of our town as we're looking for sculptures. Let's not ignore our entire community and focus just on the downtown. And I mean, obviously we've got stuff now at the airport. We've got some really lovely pieces by the library, but let's look at all our municipal properties over the road and show a little love throughout the community, please. That's all.
That was why we have 12 works of art at Sage, is rather than put all those costs into one area, we have art throughout the community. So that's something that as new projects are being built, for example, they're gone. But the 2 projects that are going into North Livermore, specifically in Springtown, we are collecting public art fees from those as well.
But then hopefully also instilling art there.
Oh, no,
from
this
those
is the whole point
Yeah.
of the public art fee. This is why we had Taking Flight installed at the premium outlets, is because we want art throughout the community. Again, this is why at Sage, there's 12 pieces of art that are being installed throughout that community, because they're paying the fee. Actually, they're buying the art rather than paying the fee. So we would actually prefer that they put in public art rather than pay the fee. This is a case where we have money from the global art fee that they decided to fee out rather than put it into their developments. I would prefer they put it in the development. Yeah. So
one other comment.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of the Art in Schools program. I was recently treated to a 2nd grade production of A Midsummer's Night Dream, and just seeing the impact in the kids with the floppy donkey ears, and they're each taking bits of a role, and really the impact to a 2nd grader, and seeing them. Even though it was in front of another it was a 1st grade class that they brought in as the audience, that was and the instructors were great, and it just really brought some of the kids out that I've known for a few years, since kindergarten, and just seeing them come out of their little shells because suddenly they're a fairy, or, Daddy, what's a satyr, and all that kind of is like, okay, it's like, okay, guys, it's some of the questions where I need to brush up to answer some of the, what does this mean? And it's like, the heck if I know, but it sounds great. So I'm a big fan, so I'm glad to see it continue, and especially now going out, for kind of a wider RFP and see what we get from that. That's going to be great. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, the first time I was on stage was in the 3rd grade, and you saw what happened to me. Drama or theater actually literally changed my life. So I'm a huge fan of theater, huge fan of the arts.
Third grade as well. I was cast as a Munchkin in the 8th grade production of Wizard of Oz. Imagine that. It wasn't any talent. It was, I think, based on height. So they said all the short kids, third graders, that aren't just going to scream and run away. Okay, you. So a few lipstick circles later and a weird, thing. I was a Munchkin. So
We did the same thing in Babes in Toyland. We were first graders on that one. Okay. Questions, comments?
I'll move the item.
Okay, moved by Vice Mayor Gary. Do I have a
Second.
Second by Councilmember Turner. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Great, very good. Thank you very much. Let's see, moving on to 6.05, we've got discussion and direction for state or federal legislation. We got nothing?
We have nothing.
Okay, great. Although, if I could just report just for a moment regarding the state and federal legislation, which of course gets into transportation. I met with some of the folks at the DOT last week when I was in Washington, D.C., and it turns out that the DOT had apparently been informed by the MTC that the CMA had opted to replace BART Livermore with the HOV. So we set them straight. So with that, moving on to...
Can you put that in English, please?
Yeah.
They were misinformed.
Yeah. So the Department of Transportation had been informed by the Metropolitan Transportation Commission that our congestion management agency, the Alameda County Transportation Commission, ACTC, had, instead of bringing BART to Livermore, had chosen to replace that with the high occupancy vehicle and toll lanes. So I informed them at the time that was not the case, but we are working on consensus to make sure that they get it right. So with that, Council City Committee reports and matters initiated. Councilmember Spadowski.
Just one item to report. Earlier today, I attended the Wheels Board Subcommittee Projects and Services. We discussed the often talked about comprehensive operations analysis that will be probably in the next few months. We will start the public hearing process of changes. There will be some significant changes to the system. Unfortunately, over the last few years, we've experienced a 3% decrease in 5% decrease in ridership, and costs have gone up nearly 30%. So that really can't continue, and we need to make some major changes. But there will be silver linings. We will see efficiencies increase. Hopefully, get 15-minute service to BART from Livermore, traveling through downtown.
With the BRT?
And, with the Rapid. That's one of the proposals. So it would go from the lab through downtown, and then up, hit Las Positas College, and then meet every BART train on the 15-minute schedule during the week. So that's a positive. But there are some of the less productive routes where you have 3 or 4 people riding per hour, if that. We can't continue. We just can't afford to maintain that type of service. So those of you that do use the less frequently traveled routes may want to pay attention to the public hearing process and the proposed changes. And that's it.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Turner?
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Vice Mayor Gary?
On the prior topic, Stephen, you maybe saw the news and have discussed as a board, so you don't have to say anything more than, yeah, we're on it. Did you see the news story about a week ago about a new company with an app trial running in downtown San Jose where it's on-demand busing? So for the infrequent routes, you fire up your app and the bus driver zigzags several subdivisions, and more like a multi-passenger taxi is trying to balance load with technology. So just FYI, you saw it, you're on it, that's great.
We saw it. We've given direction that we want to see everything and anything that we can offer, including competing with that type of on-demand service. So yeah, we're looking, but the funding situation is such that so we'll see.
Just one thing to report, since the last council meeting, we had the intergovernmental meeting of the school district, the city, and LARPD, and the primary topic of discussion was the baby steps towards what a master plan for Springtown Golf Course joint effort could look like between the three agencies. So just very conceptual, the 6 elected officials talking about how we could cooperate. Certainly they all respect that we've got council decisions still yet to make. And if it comes to the point of master planning open space, we wanted to get the discussion moving as to how that might be coordinated. Thanks.
Oh, very good. Thank you. On the 13th of January, the Alameda County Mayor's Conference met, and we had a presentation by StopWaste.org, which are doing quite a job. They cut the waste to the landfills by 50% throughout the county, even though the population has grown 20%. So that's quite a remarkable effort. And what floored me is it costs $2,000 a pound to process the household hazardous waste. So when you take that stuff down to La Ribera Street, $2,000 a pound. So that just goes back to reuse and if there's don't use more than you need to. So don't buy the 5-gallon bottle of Chlordane. Just get the small ones. But $2,000 a pound. On the 14th, I chaired the Local Agency Information Commission LAFCO meeting. And I requested additional information regarding the Fairview Fire Protection District. We also approved 3 out-of-area service agreements in Pleasanton and Hayward, and we heard a municipal service review on stormwater. And then last week I was at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, met with the Transportation Secretary Anthony Fox, talked to him about New Starts money for BART to Livermore, spoke with Secretary of the VA, Bob McDonald, about our VA hospital and possibly revisiting that and conducting a study for the needs rather than close that down. Spoke with the Surgeon General, Vivek Murtry, who was very familiar with Livermore because it turns out that he got married at the Livermore Hindu Temple back in August. So small, weird world. But it's this type of connectivity that we get where the mayors come together and talk about best practices that really make this a very worthwhile effort to go back there with the other mayors. Also met with the National Nuclear Security Administration and talked about the great potential and collaboration that we currently have with iGate and the Livermore Valley Open Campus. So with that, I got out of there on Friday before the storm hit, so it's all good. And happy to be here. So with that, means we're going to adjourn this to the next meeting on February 8th and February 9th, where we'll be talking about the downtown RFP. With that, meeting adjourned. Thank you.